Hello friends, I'm Parwiz and welcome to my another video on building game using Python and also PyQt6. Now, this will be a 1 hour training course and you will learn different concepts on building a game using Python and also PyQt. For example, from simple animations to adding sounds, musics, bullets like these sounds. So we will learn different concepts on this 1 hour training course. But before that, if you're interested on a complete course on building GUI applications using Python and also PyQt, then you can join my course on Udemy. It's about 25 hours training course and you will be master using this course. So I have added the link in the video description. You can just join this course from the link. So now let's learn that what we're going to build in this video. So this is the simple game that we want to build. Okay, so now let's create this game. In this section, we're going to build a simple game using PyQt. And particularly in this lesson, we're going to create our game window. And also we'll talk about some concepts like QGraphics scene, QGraphics rect item, and also QGraphics view. So the first thing is that I already have created a folder at name of game1, and I want to create a new Python file. Let me just call it window.py. So the first thing is that we need to import our classes. So first I need to import sys, and also from pyqt.qt widgets, I'm going to import Q application, Q graphics scene, Q graphics view, and also Q graphics rect item. Even though we don't need Q graphics rect item in this video, but we will use that in the next video. So now let's talk about these concepts. So the first one is Q graphics scene. Now, it is a class that acts as a container for managing and organizing 2D graphical objects in a flexible and efficient way. So it serves as the environment where graphical items like shapes, we can say rectangles, ellipses, or text, they are placed, and it provides functionality to add, remove, and manipulate these items. We have QGraphics rect item. So QGraphics rect item, it's a class used to represent and display a rectangle in a QGraphics scene. Okay, it's one of the many item classes derived from the QGraphics item that can be added to a scene for graphical rendering and manipulation. This class is useful when you need to draw simple rectangular shapes in 2D spaces inside a QGraphics scene. So the last one is QGraphics scene. Now, it's a widget class that provides a way to visualize and interact with the contents of a QGraphics scene. While QGraphics scenes holds the graphical items and manage their logic, QGraphics view is responsible for rendering the scene and its items to the screen. Also, it enables users to view and interact with the scene. Okay. So now the first thing is that we need to create our class. I'm going to just call it class window, and this class extends from the QGraphics view, and I need to create my init, and also we need to call the parent constructor and super. Okay. Now after that, what we need to do, we need to create a QGraphics scene. So we already have talked that it is a container for holding graphical items. So I can create that self.scene and I can just say QGraphics scene. Okay. So after creating of QGraphics scene, what we want to do right now, we are not going to add any item to this scene, but we need to set the scene for the QGraphics view. So we have QGraphics view. We can use set scene to set our scene for the QGraphics view. So I can just say cell.setScene, and I want to just say cell.scene. I need to set the scene to the QGraphics view. Okay. After that, we can set also, it's optional, but we can set the window title. And for example, I can just say first game, and So now we need to just create our entry point of application. So the first thing is that we need to create our queue application, and after that, we need to create an instance of the I can just call it window. So we need to create that, and we need to show the window, so window.show. And lastly, we need to just start the application's event loop. Okay, so I can just say sys.exit app.execute. Okay, so now if I just run this, you will see that now I have a window. Okay, so this will be the place that we're going to build our game. Okay, so now what we want to do now, we want to create a rectangle item in this window. Okay, so now we have our window, we have our QGraphics view, and we have set the scene to the QGraphics view. Now what we want to do, we want to add a rectangle, or for example we can say an item to our scene. Okay, so for that we can use QGraphics rect item. Now you can see that we can use that in here. So now in here what I want to do, so in this section I can just say rect, so rect QGraphics rect item. Okay, so we need to create a QGraphics rect item, and after that we need to set the size of the rect. Okay, so the x and y position, and also the width and height. Okay, so for the x I can just give it 0, 0, and also we have the height, for example I can say 100 and also 100. Okay, now we have the QGraphics rect item. Now what we need to do, we need to add the item, or we can say add this rectangle item to the scene. Okay, and we can just use self.scene, and from the scene we can use add item, and we are adding the rect. Okay, so now if I just run this, so you can see that we have an item to our scene, and it's a rectangular item. Okay, so like this we have created our simple window using QGraphics view. We have set the scene on that, and after that we have created a QGraphics rect item, and also we have added that item to the scene. In the previous video we have created our first game window using QGraphics view. Now what we want to do, we want to talk about keypress events in this video. So we will create our custom events. Also we will create some changes. We will create our own custom player. Okay, so now the first thing is that I want to create another Python file, and I'm going to just call it player. Okay, so now in the player, the first thing is this, that so if you see in here, we have a QGraphics rect item in here. What we want to do, we want to create another class called class player, and we are going to extend from this QGraphics rect item. Okay, so now in here we want to import from PyQt Qt widgets, we are going to import QGraphics rect item, and also from Qt GUI, so Qt GUI we are going to import QKey event, and also we will need the Qt, also import Qt from the Qt core. Okay, so the first thing is that let's create our class player. Now this class player extends from the QGraphics rect item. Okay, now we need to override the keypress event method to handle key presses. Okay, so I can just say def key press event. I need to just not key release, but it should be key press event. Okay, so I need to override this. Now what we want to do, we want to check that if the space key is pressed. Okay, so I can just say if event dot key, so if event dot key is we will change this, but right now it's good to know about the key events inside the QGraphics rect item. So we want to check that if the key is space, if the space key is pressed, what we want to do. So I can just say qt dot key dot key space. Okay, so you can see that we have different key. We are going to use the space key. Okay, so if that's pressed, what we want to do, we want to just say, for example, space key is pressed. Right now we are going to just print this message. Okay, And in the else case, we can also add an else case, or we can just leave it. Okay, there's no problem. Okay, so now let me explain this. Okay, so we have player class in here. We can remove this, we don't need this right now. So we have the player class. We subclass that from the QGraphics rect item to create our custom rectangle item. We already have our rectangle item in here, but we want to change that with our own custom player. Okay, so also in here we have the key press event. Now this method handles key press events. You can customize it to handle specific key presses, like for example in here we have space key or another key that you want. Okay, so now we have our player. After that, what we want to do, we need to bring some changes to our this window.py. Now instead of this, I'm going to just comment this. Okay, so this one. Now instead of that, what we want to do, we want to import our this player. So I can just say from player, we want to import the player. So player, and now we need to instantiate this player. So in here I can just say cell.player player. Okay, and now instead of this rect, what we want to do, we want to just say cell.player set rect. Now we can set rect that, and in here instead of this rect, we want to just use our player, cell.player. Okay, so now right now let's just run it. So let me just run it. If I press space key, you can see nothing happens in here. Okay, if I press that, nothing happens. Now there's a reason, because what we want to do, we need to make the item focusable. Okay, so to do that, what we need to do, we need to in this window.py file, we can just use, we need to set a flag. So let me just I can just do it in here. Okay, so I can just say self.player dot set flag. So first we need to set the flag in here, and I can just use QGraphics item. We need to import that. Now we don't need this QGraphics item, so I can just say QGraphics item dot graphics item flag. This is the enum dot item is focusable. Okay, so item is focusable, and after that we need to set focus to the player. So self dot player dot set focus. So now if I just run it, and if I press space key, so you can see in here space key is pressed. Okay, space key is pressed, and this is from the player.py that we have in here. So when the space key is pressed, we want to just print this debug message. Okay, like this. In the previous video, we have talked about the key press events. Now let's bring some changes. Okay, so now instead of this key space, right now we are going to remove this. We want to move the item. For example, if you see in here, we have our this item. For example, if I press the left key or right key, I want to move this rectangle, or we can say this player. So to do that, what we want to do, for example, first let's check the left key. Okay, so I can just say key underscore left. So if we press the left key, what we want to do, we want to move the rectangle to the left. Okay, so how we can do that, we can use the position of the rectangle, and we can use the there is something in the QGraphics rect item that's called set pose. Okay, so we can get the X and Y position, and we can do some manipulation. For example, I can just say self.set pose, in the X position what I want to do, self.x. Okay, so in the X position I want to -10. Okay, and in the Y position I don't want to do anything, so self.y. Okay, so right now if I just run this, and if I press the left key, so you can see that we can go to the left. Okay, you can see it's working. So now what we want to do, we want to check for other scenarios. Okay, so I can just say elif I can just copy this from here, paste it in here. So if elif even key is, we can check for the right. If that is right key, what we want to do, we want to add 10, okay, to the x, like this. So sorry, add 10. And now we can check another scenario that if that so it should be right, okay. So another scenario is that if we are pressing the up key, so if we are pressing the up key, we don't need to add anything to the x position, but we need to minus from the y position. So minus 10, and also we can do something with the down position. So if it is on the down, so down, we can add 10 to the y. Okay, so now let's just run it. And now if I just go to the left, to the right, up, bottom, it's working. Okay, so you can see that the key press event is working. In this lesson, we want to create our bullet system. So the first thing is that we are going to create another Python file, and I'm going to just call it bullet.py. And now the bullet is also we want to extend this from the QGraphics rect item. So from the Qt widgets, we are going to import QGraphics rect item, and we can just create our class bullet. It extends from the QGraphics rect item. So this is our init and also super.init. Now the first thing is that we need to set the dimensions of the bullet, and we can say set rect. Okay, so the x and y position and also the width and height. So for example, you can make it 10 by 50. So now we have our bullet. After that, we are going to open our player.py. We need to bring some changes in here. So for example, let me first check that if we are hitting the space key. Okay, so I can check that if event.key is qt.key underscore space. So if this is the case, what we want to do, we want to create a new bullet. Okay, so I can just say from bullet, we are going to import the bullet. So now okay, so in here what we want to do, we can just say bullet. So bullet, and also we want to position the bullet relative to the player current position. Okay, so I can just say bullet dot set pose, and I can just say self.x, and also self.rect dot width, and we want to divide that by 2, and we can say minus. We want to minus that from the rect of the bullet. So bullet dot rect dot width divided by 2 and self dot y. Okay, so self dot x. Okay, so in here we need to plus that. Okay, add that like this. So self dot x plus the self dot rect dot width divided by 2, and we want to minus the bullet dot rect dot width divided by 2, and this is the y position. Okay, and after that, what we want to do, we want to add the bullet to the scene, and I can just say self dot scene dot add item, and I want to add the bullet. Okay, and we can change this to elif like this. Okay, so now let's just run it, and if I press space, so you can see that we have a bullet. Okay, so we have the bullet. Right now the bullet is not moving, but we'll fix that. But right now we can see that the bullet is working. If I hit a space, now we have one bullet in here. Okay, and it is working. So the bullet system is working. Now what we want to do, after hitting the space key, we want to move the bullet, okay? So for that, what we want to do, we want to use a class that's called QTimer. So in PyQt, QTimer is a class that provides a way to repeatedly trigger events at irregular intervals or after a set amount of time has passed. It's commonly used in applications where you need periodic updates such as moving objects in games, updating animations, or refreshing data on the user interfaces. So for that, we can use QTimer. So now we can just open our bullet.py. So this is our bullet system. Now the first thing is this, that we need to create a QTimer to move the bullet. So first we need to import that. That's related to the Qt core. So from pyqt.qt core, we are going to import the QTimer. And after that, we can just say, so self.timer QTimer. And so now we have our QTimer. After that, what we want to do, we want to connect the timer's timeout signal to the move method. So right now we haven't created the move method, but we will create that. So I can just say self.timer dot I can just say, for example, timeout dot connect, and I want to connect that with the move. So self.move. Okay. So right now we haven't created the move, but we will create that. And in this section, okay, but before that we need to just start the timer. So self.timer.start, and it is in millisecond, and we can just say 50 millisecond. Okay, so after that, let's create our move. So diff move, and in the move, what we want to do, we want to move the bullet up by 10 units, and I can just say self.setPose and self.x, and from the up I want to just say self.y minus 10. Okay, so now let's just run it, and it's working or not. Let's check it. So now we can see that the bullet is working. Okay, so the bullet is working. Okay, so you can see that the bullet system is working and there's no problem, but we have a problem in here. You can see that there's something that's called scrollable in the QGraphics view. So you can see that it is scrolling. Okay, so you can see that the scene became bigger and bigger. So there's a fix. We can fix this problem right now, but we will change that. For example, you can just disable this scrolling. Okay, so you can open window.py file, and in here you can just disable that. So self.set horizontal scroll bar policy, and we can just say Qt. We need to import Qt, so I can just say from pyqt.qt core, we are going to import Qt, and in here we can just say Qt dot scroll bar policy dot scroll bar always off. Okay, so this is for the horizontal and also for the vertical policy. So we can just say set vertical scroll bar policy, and we can just say Qt dot scroll bar policy, and also we can just off this dot scroll bar always off. Okay, so right now if I just run it, and if I hit the space key, you can see we have the bullet, but we don't have the scroll bar, and right now it's working. Okay, there is no problem. So in this lesson, we're going to fix some issues that we have in the game. So for example, if I hit a bullet, you can see that the bullet goes and goes, even though we have disabled the scroll bar policy. But for example, if I just comment this, and if I just run it again, and if I hit a bullet, you will see that I have now the bullet goes and goes, and you can see that we have scrolling. Okay, now we need to fix this problem. Okay, so the first thing is this, that we need to open our window.py file, and we need to set a fixed size for the window. Okay, So I can just say self, okay, so self dot set fixed size, and I can give it 800 by 600. Okay, it's a fixed size. And after that, what we want to do, we want to also set the scene rect for our scene, and it should be this 800 by 600. Okay, so I can just say self dot scene dot set scene rect, so x and y 0 0, and I can say 800 by 600. Okay, so now if I just run it, okay, no problem, the player is at the top, we will fix that. So if I hit a bullet, okay, so you can see that now we don't have the scrolling, more scrolling in here, and we can hit the bullet, okay, and it is working. So now we have a problem that when we run this, the player is at the top. So to solve this problem, we need to center the player horizontally and near the bottom vertically. Okay, so now what we want to do, we can do that inside the we can do that inside this window.py file app, and here we need to set the initial position of our player. So I can just say self.player dot set pose, and I can just say self dot scene dot width, and I can divide that by 2, and I can minus that self.player.rect dot width. I can get the width, and I want to divide it by 2. So now for the height, I can do the same. So self dot so let's just do that in here. So self dot scene dot height minus self dot player dot rect dot height like this. Okay, so now if I just run this, you can see that the player is at the bottom. Now I can just so let's just run it again. Okay, so now you can see that I can hit the bullet, and now you can see that this problem is also solved. So now there's another problem. So we have up and down in the game. We don't need that, and we need to remove that code. We need to prevent that. So we want the left and right, and we don't want the up and down. So for that, we can open the player.py file, and in here we want the left and right, but we don't want the up and down key. Okay, so I can just remove that code, and now if I just run it, now I cannot go up and down. I can just go left and right. Okay, and it's working. In this lesson, we want to work on our enemy system. So the first thing is this, that we're going to create another Python file, and we can just call it enemy.py file. So let me refactor it, enemy.py file. Okay, so now we need to import our classes from Qt core. We're going to import QTimer, and also from Qt widgets we're going to import QGraphics rect item, and also from random we're going to import random. So the first thing is this, that we want to create our class enemy, and it extends from the QGraphics rect item. We can just create our init and also super.init. Now the first thing is this, that we need to set random position for the enemy. So I can say random number rand int. So I can give the number of the between 10 and also 1000 modulus 700, and now we need to set the position. So self.set pose, and we can say random number. So for the x, and for the y we can just make it 0. Okay, so now we need to set the size of the enemy, and I can just say self.set set rect. We can use set rect from the QGraphics rect item, and we can give the x and y position and also the width and height of the enemy. Okay, after that we want to create a timer, because we want to move the enemy from app. So by this reason we need to create a timer. So I can just say self.timer, qtimer, and self.timer.timeout, so .timeout.connect, and we want to connect that with the move method that we will create. Okay, so right now we don't have that. And also we need to start the timer, so self.timer.start, and I can just give it 50 milliseconds. Okay, so now let's create our move method in here. So def move. Okay, so first of all, what we want to do, we want to move the enemy down, and I can just say self.set pose, and I can get the X position, and for the Y position, what I want to do, I want to add 5, okay, plus 5. And now we want to check that if the enemy moves off the screen, what we want to do, we want to remove the remove that. Okay, so you can just say if self.pose .y plus self.rect height is less than 0. Okay, on that case, what we want to do, we can just say self.scene.remove item. Okay, so we can use a remove item from the scene, and we can just pass self. Okay, and we can just print that deleted, for example. We can just print it like this. So now after that, we need to open our main.py file, and in there we need to spawn the enemies periodically using a qtimer class. So not main.py, window.py, so we have window.py in here. So now in here, first we need to create our spawn in here, so I can just say def spawn, so spawn, okay, so I need to create instantiate the enemy in here, so from enemy import enemy, and I can say enemy, and I need to add that enemy to the scene, to the window scene, so self.scene.add-item, and I want to add enemy. So now in here we can use the qtimer, and we need to import that, so qtimer, okay, so I can just say self.timer qtimer and self.timer.timeout.connect, so self.timer.connect, and we want to connect that with the spawn. Also we want to start the timer, so self.timer.start, and I can just say at this millisecond, 2000 millisecond. Okay, so now let's just run it. Okay, so now you can see that we have the enemies, and that's spawning. We have the enemies in here, and it's working. In the previous lesson, we have created our enemy. Now in this lesson, we want to create bullet collision. For example, right now, if I hit bullet in here, so you can see nothing happens. I want, for example, when I hit the bullet, the enemy should be removed. Okay, so we need to work on that. To do that, what we want to do, we want to open our bullet.py file, and in the move, and here we need to create our code. Okay. Okay, so in the bullet.py file, the first thing is this, that we need to check for the collision. Okay, so I can just say colliding items, and we can use the colliding items. Okay, so using that we can check the collision. Okay, now after that we need to loop through all the colliding items and also find the enemies. So I can just say for item in colliding items, and also we can just say if instance, so if is instance item enemy, we need to import the enemy. From enemy, import enemy. So in this case, what we want to do, we want to remove the enemy and bullet from the scene. So we want to look through all the colliding items to find the enemies. On that case, what we want to do after finding, we want to remove the enemy and also the bullet from the scene. So we can just say self.scene.remove item. We want to remove the item, and self.scene scene self.scene.remove item. Also, we want to remove the enemy and also bullet. Also, for example, we can print something in here so that the bullet hit enemy. Okay. Also, we need to stop the bullet timer, so we can just say self.timer.stop, not start, but stop. Also, we want to delete both the enemy and also the bullet. So even it's not necessary, but we can do that manually. Okay. So del item and also del self. Even though it will be done by Python, but we can just do this. Okay. So del self. Not def, but del. Okay. So now after doing this, we want to exit the function to avoid further processing. So we can just return that. And also we need to check that if the bullet moves off the screen on that time, we also want to remove that. Okay. So we can just do that in here in this section. So if self.y plus self.rect.height, so we want to get the y added by the height of the player or the bullet. So we can just say if that's greater than 0, what we want to do, we want to just say self.scene .remove item and self.timer.stop. Okay, so for right now, let's just run it that. So let me remove this, I think. So first let's run this. Okay, so now we have the enemy. If I hit that, okay, you can see that's working. That code is, I think, not necessary because we are doing that at the top and we don't need to write that. Okay, so now you can see that bullet hit enemy. You can see that it's working. Okay, so that code is not necessary because we are going to do that in here, and we're stopping the timer in here, so we didn't need to add that. So you can see that this is working. In this lesson, we want to create our score system. So the first thing is this, that let's create our Python file. Let me call it score.py file. And in here, what we want to do, we need to use QGraphics text item. So the first thing is this, that we need to import that. So from the Qt widget, we are going to import the QGraphics text item. So QGraphics text item. And also from Qt, okay, so from Qt core, we are going to import Qt, and from Qt GUI, we're going to import QFont. Okay, so now let's create our class score, and we can use the QGraphics text item Now the first thing is that we need to initialize the score to 0. After that, we want to draw the text, okay? And because we're extending from the QGraphics text item, now I can just say self.setPlain text, and I can just say score. And I need to convert that to string and say self.score. After that, also I can set a default text color. So set default text color, and we can use the global color dot black, not blue, but we can say black. Also, we can set the font. So self.set font, Q font, and for example, you can use sans serif, and I can give it 18. Okay, so this is the font size. Now we have our score.py file. We need to add this in the window.py file. So in here, for example, in this section, I can just say adding score. So adding score, and let's just first we need to import the score from score, import score, and now let's create that sol.score score, and also we need to add that to the scene. So sol.scene.add item, and we want to add the score. So now if I just run it, and now you can see that we have our score, and the bullet system is also working, but right now the score is not updating, but it's working. We have the score. In this lesson, we want to work on increasing the score. So right now we have the score, but when we hit the bullet, when the bullet, for example, collide with the enemy, nothing happens. Okay. So what we want to do, we are going to so you can see that we have this is the score right now, that's 0, and if I hit, we want to make this 1, 2, 3, for example, for every enemy. Now the first thing is this, that we need to open our score.py file, and in here we can create a increase method. So like this, we can give an initial point to 1. Now we want to increase the score by a given number of points and update the display. So I can say sol.score, and I can add points to that. I can just make it points. And after that, we need to update the display, and I can just say solve.setPlainText. We can use string score and solve.score. Now after this, what we want to do, we need to bring some changes. We need to find the score object in the scene and increase the score. So we can do that in the bullet.py file. So we can just open the bullet.py file. So after this, in here, what we want to do, we want to find the score object in the scene and increase the score. So I can just say for scene items in sol.scene.items, now in here we can check if is instance of scene items, and we can make it scene item. So scene item, and also score. So we need to import the score in here. So from score, import score. Well, now we can update the score, and I can just say scene item dot increase, and I can call my increase method, and also we can just print that score increased. Okay, so now I think we are done. Let's just run it that it's working or not. So now this is the first enemy. Okay, you can see the score is updating, and also we have a message in here that score increased and the score is working. And let's hit this one, this one, this one, and it's working. In the previous lesson, we have created our score. Now in this lesson, we want to create our health. So let's create another Python file, and I'm going to just call it health.py file. So what we need to do, we need to import the QGraphics. I think we need these imports. Let me import that, copy that and paste it in here. And now I can create a class health. And this class extends from the QGraphics text item, div init, super.init. Now we can create our initial health to 3, okay? Now we want to draw the text, so self.set plain text health, self.health, and also we can set, we can copy this code. I think that's the same, and we can paste it, except we can just make the health to red color. Okay. Now after that, we need to add this health to the window.py file. We have the score. Now we can say adding health. First we need to import the health. From health, import health. And in this section, we can just say sol.health. Health. We need to add that, so sol.scene item, we need to add the health to the scene, so self.health. And now if I just run this, we have the health, but it's on top of the score. We need to change the position of the health, and we can just say self.health.setPose. We can get the X position of the health and also the Y position. And in the Y position, we want to add 28, okay? So from the top, we want to add 28 from the top of the score. So if I run it, and now you can see that we have our health and it's working. We have created our health, but let's work on decreasing the health. So for example, if the enemy hit the player, we want to decrease the health, for example, from 3 to 2, 2 to 1, and after that we close the game. So this will be our logic. Now what we need to do, we need to create in the health.py file, we want to create the decrease method, and I can give amount to 1. So I can just say self.health, and I can just minus it from the amount. And after that, we want to ensure that the health doesn't go below, and I can just check it if self.health is greater than 0. On that case, what we want to do, we want to just say self.health, and we can just make it to 0. After that, we can update the displayed health. So the new updated health, so self.health or we can say self.set plain text. I can just say health and self.health. Okay. Also, we need to just work on the isAlive method. Now, in this method, we want to check that if the player still has health left. And we can say return self.health greater than 0. Okay, so now what we want to do after creating the health.py file, we need to open our enemy.py file, and here we need to add some codes. Okay, so first what we want to do, we want to check for the collision of the enemies with the player or collision of the player, first we want to check, and we want to check we want to get the list of all items that the enemy is colliding with. And so I can just say colliding items, cell.colliding items. After that, we want to check if the colliding item is an instance of the player class. Okay, so we want to check that, but before that, first let me do that for item and colliding items. And in here we need to import the player. From player we want to import the player. Okay, so now we want to check that if the colliding item is an instance of the player class, so I can say if is instance of item, and also we can give the player. So in that case we want to loop through all items in the scene to find the health object. For scene underscore item and cell.scene dot items, so dot items. Now we can check if the item is a health object, and I can say if is instance of scene underscore item, and we can use the health in here. So you need to import the health. I already have the health in here. Okay, on that case we want to call the decrease method to reduce player's health. Scene item dot decrease, and also we can print that health is decreased. Now we want to check that if the health reaches 0, on that time what we want to do, we want to trigger a game over logic. Now in my case I want to just close the game, but you can add your own logic. So for example, I can check that if not scene item dot is alive, if the player is not alive, we want to say game over, and we can close the window. So cell dot scene dot views dot close. Okay, also we need to remove the enemy from the scene after it hits the player. Okay, so we can do that in here. So we can check, or we can say that cell dot scene dot remove item, and we want to stop the movement timer for the enemy. Cell dot timer dot stop. Also we can just exit the function and we can just return it. Okay, so now let's check that it's working or not. If I run it, okay, the health is not decreasing. Let's check that where is the problem. Okay, the problem is this, that we need to indent this in here. Okay, like this. So now let's just run it. So we have the enemy, and so you can see the score is decreased to 2 to 1, and now the window will be closed. Okay, so game over. And now if I just run it again, so the bullet system is also working. Let's check it. Yeah, there's no problem, it's working. And now let's just, so this is the 2, health decreased, 1, and game over. In this lesson we want to talk about adding background music to our game. So right now our game is working as expected, so we want to add music to the background of our game. So now let's do that. So the first thing is this, that we need to import from PyQt6.qt multimedia. We are going to import Q media player and also Q audio output. Now make sure that you have PyQt6.6. okay, so as I'm recording this section, if you're using PyQt6.7, then the Qt multimedia package will not work. Okay, so for right now it's not working. Maybe after some time there will be compatibility with PyQt 6.7, but for right now we are using 6.6 and it's working with that. There is no problem. If you have 6.7, then the media player package will not work for right now. Maybe after that, after some times, if you're, for example, using and it's working, you can just leave a comment, or you can just leave some hint that it's working. So now we have imported the QMedia player and also QAudio output. Now the first thing is that we need to create a method in here. So I can just say set up. I can say music or background. You can just name it whatever you want. So now we need to create a QMedia player instance. So solve.media player, QMedia player. So QMedia player. After that, we need to set up an audio output to the media player. And first we need to create that solve.audio. I can just name it audio, QAudio output. QAudio output. And now we can also you can set the volume. So first let's set the volume. Set volume. It's between 0 and 1. We can just give it 0.1. And now I can say solve.mediaplayer.set audio output to the audio, solve.audio. Okay, so after doing that, we need to convert the file path to a QURL, and we need to set that as the media player source. Okay, so for that we need to use QURL. Make sure that you have imported the QURL from the Qt core. I already have imported. Now, okay, so now in here I can say, for example, music file QURL dot from local file, and in here we need to give the name of that media. So it is bg3.mp3. Now make sure that you already have added this in your working directory. So I already have. If you don't have, you can just get that from the video or from the lesson source code. So after this, now we can set the source, solve.mediaplayer.set source, and we want to set that to the music file. And at the end we need to play the media player, solve.mediaplayer.play. Okay, now we need to call this setup music, and I can just call it at the top, solve.setup music. So now if I run it, and you can see that's working. In the previous lesson, we have talked about adding background music to our game. Now in this lesson, we want to add a bullet sound. Okay, so for example, when we are hitting the bullet, we want a bullet sound. So to do that, we need to open the player.py file, and here let me just create my init and also super.init. Okay, now after that, okay. So now in this section, we need to set up media player for bullet sound effect, and we need to import that from Qt multimedia. We are going to import QMedia player and also QAudio output. So now the first thing is this, that we need to create or instantiate the media player, and I can just say solve.bulletSound, so bullet sound, and QMedia player. After that, we need to also create our audio. So I can say solve.audio, QAudio output, and now we need to set the audio to the media player, and we can use solve.bulletSound.set audio output, and we want to set the audio, solve.audio. So now we are done with that. After that, what we want to do, we want to load the bullet sound effect, okay? And we need to import QURL. So QURL from the Qt core, and in here we are going to load the bullet sound, and we can just say bullet sound, self.bullet sound. So self.bullet sound okay, so I can just say bullet sound URL. Okay, so first we need to create that bullet sound URL, QURL dot from local file, and in here I already have added a bullet2.mp3. I want to use that, so bullet2.mp3. So now we need to set that to the media player, bullet sound dot set source, and we want to bullet sound, and we want to set the bullet sound URL to that. Okay, so now we are done with that. After loading, so right now we are loading that. Now, and the space key where we are hitting the space, or where we are creating the bullet, in this section we want to load this bullet sound. Okay, so so in here we're checking that if event key is key space. Okay, and in here we can do that. So I can just say if, first we need to check that if the bullet sound is currently playing, if self dot bullet sound dot playback state is q media player dot playing state, and if it is in the playing state, on that case what we want to do, we want to stop and stop it, okay, and replay it. So I can just say self dot bullet sound dot stop. Okay, and in the else case what we want to do, we want to play the bullet firing sound. I can just say self dot bullet sound dot play. So now let's run it, that it is working or not. It's working. Okay, now our bullet is working and there's no problem with that. In the next lesson we will work on the graphics of our player and enemy. This will be the last part for this section or for our game. Now in this section we want to add some graphics to our game. For example, we will add a bullet graphic, player graphic. Okay, so first let's start from the bullet. So open bullet.py file. Now the first thing is this, that we need to change this to QGraphics pexmap item. Okay, so instead of rect item, QGraphics pexmap item. Okay, and in here we are extending from the QGraphics pexmap item. Now this rect is in the QGraphics rect item. Inside the pexmap item we don't have set rect, and instead of this we can use set pexmap. So set pexmap, and what we want to do, we want to import qpexmap. So from qt GUI we are going to import qpexmap, and in here we can add our qpexmap. So let me remove this, and this is the place that you can add your graphic name. Okay, so right now if you see I have added some graphic in here. So bullet.png, we have this bullet.png. We are going to add this one in here. So bullet.png. Okay, So now we have changed our bullet. Also, we need to bring some change in the bullet positioning. If you come down, I think, okay, so I think we don't need, because we haven't used that code, so there's no problem. Okay, so this was for the bullet. Now we need to bring some changes to our other sections also. Now we need to open player.py file, and in the player.py file we need to change the player positioning. Okay, so right now if you see, we are using rect bullet.rect, but inside the pex map we don't have that. So in here we are instantiating bullet, and in here we are positioning the bullet. So instead of this rect, what we want to use, we want to use pex map. Okay, and also for the I think we just need to bring change in here, and okay, so okay, so self.rect.weight, bullet dot set position, so self.x, self.rect, not self.pex. Okay, so we can use rect. For right now we are using rect because we haven't changed the QGraphics rect item. When we change that, we also need to bring changes in here. Okay, so now let's also add the QGraphics specs map in here. So QGraphics specs map item, and we can remove that. So now we need to change this to pex map, and let's check okay, so we don't need any changing. Okay, so this was our player.py file. Now because our player is inside the window.py, now in here we also need to change this to set pex map. Okay, so set pex map, and I need to import qpex map from qt GUI, and in here I can just say from .qt GUI we are going to import qpex map. So qt GUI, let's import qpex map, and now we can use qpex map. Okay, so where is it? Okay, so this is the place, and we need to add our player in here. So I have a player.png, so this is the player.png. Let me add that in here, so player.png. So now we have added the player.png. Also we will okay, so this is the place that also we need to bring changes. It should be pex map and pex map. Okay, so now after doing this, now let's run it, that it's working or not. Okay, so okay, I think right now we haven't changed the enemy, so I think we have changed the player and also bullet. Let's get a bullet. Yeah, it's working. You can see that it's working. Okay, so now let's change the enemy.py file. So now in the enemy, instead of QGraphics rect item, I want to use the pex map item, and we can change this to pex map item, and in here instead of this we can just use set pex map, and let's also import qpex map from the qt GUI, from pyqt.qt GUI. Let's import qpex map, and let's add this pex map in here. And we have enemy.png in here, so enemy.png, we want to add that. Change this to pex map. Okay, and I think we are done with this. Okay, so let's okay, so it will work, there's no problem. Also we need to change the background. Let me add a background color in here. So cell dot set style sheet, and for the background color I want to use this background color. It should be 24C. Okay, Uh, Also, we have a problem in here. Right now, the player goes off the screen. So if I run it, okay, so you can see that we want to prevent that. You can see that it's also working. You'll not see the sound in here because my microphone is attached by this reason. Okay, so now I need to prevent the player from going to the left and right more than expected. So now in the keypress event, we want to open our player.py file, and in the keypress event, the first thing is this, that we need to just create a scene width or get the scene boundaries, and I can say scene width cell.scene dot scene rect dot width. And after that we need to check the left and right. Okay, so in here we have elif if the key is left. Then what we want to do, we want to check that move the player left but prevent going off the screen. So we can check that if self dot x, if that is greater than 0, if self.x is greater than 0, then what we want to do, we want to use this code. Okay, so self.setPose. We can do the same for the right key. Okay, so we can check in here if self dot x is also we can check the we want to move the player right but prevent going off the screen, but we also need to check the text map width. So dot width, if that is less than the scene width, then on that case we want to do this. Okay, now in here we are ensuring that the player doesn't move behind the right boundaries, so like this. So now if I run it, so you can see it's preventing. So now you can see that the game is working.